Hi, it's great to see you again. Welcome back to Garage Talk. It's been a while. The weather has been better, and we've been out of the garage, and we've been all around this district, knocking on doors, meeting people, calling people on the phone, trying to get out the message of our plan for how to make New York State, Saratoga, and Washington County better. And as we come into the final 10 days of this election, it's really going to come down to one sort of essential sort of question that you need to ask yourself and answer, which is, who do you trust, right? And on that question, the biggest issue in this campaign has been safety and security. And you're going to see a lot of ads going back and forth and a lot of mail going back and forth about bail and about other safety and security issues. Now, when I started this thing, I said two things. One is, I'd always tell you the truth. The second thing is that when things got difficult or complicated or complex, that we come to the garage, we get on the whiteboard, and I lay it out in black and white for you to see. So that's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to lay out the issues in safety and security, including my opponent's record, because that is very much in dispute right now. I'm going to lay it out with the facts, and then you can decide on the basis of that, who do you trust with safety and security? All right, so let's start with bail. Bail is by far the most contentious issue. And there's a bit of a history on this. So there's a progression. There were votes in 2018, 2019, and 2020. And let me break them down for you because it's important. In 2018, what happens in Albany is that both the Senate and the Assembly, they put forward what they called House resolutions. And in those resolutions are a series of budget bills, which they amend to outline the priorities of that chamber, of that House. So in 2018, the Assembly resolution for that year that had their priorities included the repeal of bail. My opponent, Kerry Warner, voted yes for that. Now, to be clear, that law did not pass in 2018. Move forward to 2019. Now the issue gets even more steam, and in 2019, when that bill does come forward in the form of part of the budget, the final budget resolution, my opponent voted no on that budget bill. Now understand, there are many things, many issues in that budget bill, which include all sorts of priorities and all sorts of different things. And that's just the way things are done in Albany. So my opponent voted against the whole bunch of things in that bill, but included in that was the repeal of bail. Now in 2020, several months ago now, but this year, after all the uproar about how the bail reform was broken, how criminals were running free, they tried to basically put everybody at ease by coming forward with some reforms. I will tell you the reforms were not enough. Other people will tell you the reforms are not enough, and we'll talk about that. But my opponent, Kerry Warner, when she had the chance to be the vote, the deciding vote, to say no, that we're not going to continue this broken law, that these reforms were not nearly enough, when she had the chance to be that vote, because it only passed by one vote, folks, she said yes. So she was the deciding vote to continue this broken bail reform. Now, let's count them up. 2 yeses, 1 no. Who do you trust? Let's keep going. Okay. Now, after all these reforms are done, right, the reforms that my opponent, Kerry Warner, touts as having made the bill better, okay? That's what she says. After that's all done, just maybe a month ago, not even quite that, there was an interview. And then the interview included our own Sheriff Zerlo, Albany County Sheriff Craig Apple, and Albany County District Attorney David Soares. David Soares said, "This is the worst law I've seen in my lifetime." This is the worst law I've seen in my lifetime. Now, David Soares is probably the most liberal district attorney in the state of New York. He was actually elected with funding and backing of one of the most liberal men in the world, George Soares. So when David Soares says it's one of the worst laws he's seen in his lifetime, rest assured, folks, it's one of the worst laws he's seen in his lifetime. Okay? So don't take my word for it that the reforms that my opponent touts as being oh so great that she voted for, the Liberal District Attorney, David Soares, as well as Sheriff Zerlo, as well as every other sheriff in the state of New York, as well as Sheriff Craig Apple, said weren't nearly enough. Okay? So that's where we are on bail reform. But there's more. One thing that no one talks about, because it's more complicated and more difficult to understand, is that along with bail reform, there's this thing called discovery. Okay? And so with discovery, let me give you an example of how that works now and how that actually puts you at risk. Right now, if your mother or your sister or your grandmother were stalked by somebody, and say they were stalked to their home, and that criminal was arrested, that criminal, as part of New York's discovery law, would have the right to actually go into your mother's home, go into your daughter's home, go into your grandmother's home as part of the evidentiary gathering procedure. Yes, that's right. Somebody stalks your daughter, they get arrested, they have the opportunity to actually go into the places where they stalked them or where they stalked them to get evidence themselves. That's right. That's part of Kerry Warner's fixed bail reform law. Who do you trust? Let's keep talking. All right. Now, the law is broken, but we've had incidents since this great bail reform was done, right? It included that tragic shooting of an 11-year-old hero, 11 beautiful boy in Troy, New York, Aishon, by a man who should have been in jail. We had the Zim Smith trail attacker, who the judge said they would have liked to have required a higher bail, but they couldn't because of this law. Okay? So we have all around us incidents where this bail reform is actually hurting people. But that wasn't enough. My opponent had to do more. So they had a little session, one of the few times they actually worked this year, the highest paid legislature in America. And when they came back, they passed a series of laws. And one of them is called 50A. And 50A, and we talked about it on another episode of Garage Talk, 50A puts our police officers on trial. And how that works is that when a police officer is brought up on discipline, if a police officer is brought up on discipline, and that discipline can include anyone writing a complaint. And rest assured, folks, criminals are smart. And they know if they file complaint after complaint after complaint, they're going to render an officer ineffective. And 50A turns a process before that was driven by a court so that those files would be held sacrosanct unless they were required for a actual legitimate legal proceedings. Now they're basically available to everyone. And that is putting our police officers, our corrections officers, all of our first responders and EMT people at risk from this ridiculous law. And my opponent, when she passed it, she said the words, and I'm quoting Kerry Warner, she said, "Some will say that I'm turning my back on law enforcement." I'm quoting her. It's because she did. She did. Who do you trust, folks? But there's more. There's more. Over the last 3 years, there have been 16 cop killers paroled by Andrew Cuomo's parole board. 16 cop killers. Now, if you were to ask me, a cop killer should never be released from jail. Ever. Not a day. Ever. You kill a cop, you rot in jail until your dying days. My opponent doesn't say a word. Our corrections officers, say up at Comstock right now. Right now, they cannot test prisoners for illegal drugs. The chief form of contraband in a prison, the chief form of trouble, the thing that puts our corrections officers most at risk, they cannot test prisoners for contraband. Why? New policy from the Cuomo administration. Have you ever heard of anything from my opponent on that, Kerry Warner? Nope. Silence. And when protesters were shutting down downtown Saratoga, when they're disrupting diners, intimidating diners on Filer Street, actually hurting businesses that have struggled enough to deal with the impacts of COVID, did you ever hear anything from Kerry Warner? You didn't, because she's silent. Never. Who do you trust, folks? Now, we're in the final 10 days of the campaign. You're getting mail, no doubt calling me a liar. You got people on TV. You got my opponent on TV, Kerry Warner, probably saying I'm lying. I'm not lying. You have all the facts right here. I mean, a lot of TV ads, right? A lot of TV ads. Who's paying for those? It ain't Kerry Warner, folks. And it's not people here in Saratoga. It's the people who are the architects of bail reform, the people who are architects of 50A, the people who support policies that allow cop killers to go on the street. That's not an exaggeration. That's the absolute fact. That's the absolute fact. So Kerry Warner right now is essentially trying to buy this race with funds from people who want to make you less safe. That's it. Think about it. Kerry Warner's trying to buy this election today with funding from people who are committed to making you less safe because they're the radical New York City Democrats and interest groups that believe in an agenda that puts criminals' rights ahead of your rights and your safety and the rights and safety of our police officers. And that is insane. There's no other way around it. Okay, who do you trust? I'll tell you who the police trust. +30 police organizations, including Sheriff Zerlo, including Sheriff Murphy, including the New York State Troopers PBA, have endorsed me. They've endorsed our campaign because when it comes to safety and security, I'm the one that they trust. Those are the facts. Now, when we post this video, in the text of the post, we are actually going to put links to all these votes, a link to this interview, link to the endorsements, and you can decide for yourself. My opponent wants to say I'm a liar. These are the facts, folks. They don't lie. Woo! Okay, it's a big decision. That's a lot there, right? It's 10 days to election day. Early voting is starting today. And I encourage you to go vote in person, if you can, at one of the early voting sites near you. If not, then make sure that you have your plan for voting, whether it's on election day, which I encourage, or if you must, by an absentee ballot, but make that plan or vote early. It has been my honor to get in front of this iPhone every now and then and do a little garage talk for you. I don't know if this is going to be the last one or not. If it is, I will see you on the other side. If it's not, then I'm probably going to be another hot issue that we need to talk about. But thank you for watching. Thank you for considering me for your vote. I'm humbled by the experience, and I've appreciated all the feedback, even the feedback that I haven't necessarily enjoyed that much, but being part of this process. It's a great process, and it's the most important process in the world, which is our democracy. And I encourage you to exercise it. And thank you, and be well, and we'll see you soon.